Good evening, and welcome to the 2022 Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Clarkstown Council of PTAs. To our candidates here at the Clarkstown community watching at home, thank you for participating and taking an active role in our school district. My name is Kathleen Ottenheimer. I am the corresponding secretary of the Clarkstown Council of PTAs. This forum is held yearly as a means for community members to learn about the candidates running for the Clarkstown Central School District's Board of Education. This forum is not a CCSD or school event, and participation in the forum is voluntary. This year, there are 6 candidates running for 2 open seats on the board. They are Jason Bass, incumbent Daniel Kazis, past board member Philip DiCatano, John Maltby, Brian Montez, and Alana Rayo. Dan Kazis is unable to attend because of a work conflict. To learn more about the candidates, please go to the Clarkstown Council of PTA's website. The website link will be shown on screen at the end of the broadcast. This is a closed forum. Along with the 5 candidates here, I would like to introduce Clarkstown Council of PTA's President, Shauna Wald, Vice Presidents Gina Kelly and Sonal Caceres, Treasurer Louisa Fume, Recording Secretary and Forum Moderator Tiffany Perchabali, and Candidate Forum Chairperson Aparna Tantri. Just a short while ago, the candidates drew cards to determine their seating order and who would begin the forum with their opening statement. Each candidate will receive up to 2 minutes for their opening statements. We will then move to the questions, which were chosen from a list of questions sent by the PTAs and parents across the district. This year, the PTA Council Board received a record 81 questions. We could only take a handful because of the forum's 2-hour time limit, but spent hours deliberating which questions would be put to the candidates. If you don't hear your question asked tonight, we urge you to reach out to the candidates directly. Tonight, we have 8 questions. Each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes to answer. The timekeeper will hold up a sign when the candidate has 60 seconds and 30 seconds left to answer. There will be no time provided for rebuttals. At the end of the night, candidates will get up to 2 minutes each to provide a closing statement. If the candidates go over their time limit, their mic will be cut off. Finally, before we move to Tiffany Perchabali to start the forum, I'd like to give special thanks to Gary Serlin, a volunteer parent and PTA member. Gary has taken a considerable amount of his personal time to set up for live streaming and recording of this event. Thank you, Gary, for all your time, help, and dedication to make the forum happen. And now, our moderator, Tiffany Perchabali.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening. I'm Tiffany Perchabali, Recording Secretary for the Clarkstown Council of PTAs. But before we get started, I want to reiterate the guidelines for the candidates and the viewers at home. A short while ago, the candidates drew cards to determine seating order. Philip DiGatano got the lowest card, and he will be the first for his opening statement, followed by Alana Rayo. Once opening statements are completed, we'll start with questions, beginning with Alana Rayo, going first. Each candidate will get a chance to answer at least one question first. The closing statements will begin with Jason Bass. You will have up to 2 minutes each for your statements and questions. The timekeeper will hold up a sign when you have 60 seconds left, and once again when you have 30 seconds left. When the timekeeper calls time, your mic will be cut off and we will move to the next question. With that, let's begin with opening statements. Bill, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if they can hear me. Thank you very much. My name is Philip DiGatano, and I want to thank the PTA for inviting me here tonight. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be invited. I lived in Clarkstown over 40 years. I'm married 30 years to my wife, Sabina. This year was 30 years. I have my daughter, Brittany, 28, who's now a teacher in the North Rockland School District. My son, Nicholas, who has autism. He's 24 years old now, and he just tries his best every day, and we just love him so much. And my little daughter now is up in Plattsburgh. She's going to be a nurse. She just completed her first year. I'll have my opening statement. It'll be brief. I just want to say 2 things that I really believe is very important this year. And no matter what you hear tonight, if the 2 things I tell you don't come true, nothing's going to come true. The first thing is we're getting a new superintendent. We must, and I mean must, rally around that new superintendent.
60.
We had four superintendents in the last 10 years. This thing is bad. 4 superintendents in the last 10 years. It's imperative that we rally around a new superintendent so that we can get this district moving forward. Second, we must unify the board. If we don't unify this board, we're going to have problems that have been going on for the last couple of years. Unification in this district is most important so that we can move ahead with anything that we want to achieve in the children's education. So what I'm saying here tonight is that the 2 things that I want to work on right off the bat is working with the superintendent and rallying around that person, whoever that person is. And the second one is to unify the board so that we can unify the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Alana?
Hello. First, I want to thank the PTA Council for organizing this forum tonight and Gary for the video. As you know, my name is Alana Rayo, and I am running for school board here in Clarkstown to be a part of the decision-making process that affects our schools, our students, and our community. I want to continue to be an advocate for many families within our community. I have 2 elementary-age children who were both affected by the pandemic and school closures while each of them were in kindergarten. Both struggled with remote learning and with their social-emotional needs. In voicing my concerns, I met numerous families within our community who also had children that were facing the same struggles. I found myself advocating for many of the families. We shared experiences with not being heard when it came to the needs of our children. I am an outside-of-the-box thinker with an understanding and experience in education. I am familiar with the ongoings of a classroom and a school building, as well as having led professional developments on various topics, such as alternate assessment and technology use in the classroom. I believe in being honest and fair, as well as treating everyone with dignity and respect. I can be a unifying force. We need to work together for the best outcome for our children in schools. If I am elected, I will work hard to make sure every stakeholder has a voice. I will be transparent and will work to build upon the relationship between district and community. I will work hard to ensure everyone is represented. While our schools are good, there are areas that can be improved to make them great. If I am given an opportunity to serve as a Board of Ed member, I will make sure that there are new opportunities for parents, students, and staff to be a part of the positive changes that we all want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I just want to echo the sentiments of Philip and Alana. I want to thank the PTA for bringing us all together collectively. This is actually the first time I've met some of the other candidates, so I'm really excited. I'm running for school board. My name is Brian Montes, and I'm a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I've been a resident of Congress for 11 years, and I am a father of 4. My 2 oldest have graduated. They're graduates of Clarkstown North. My oldest is an EMT, and my second oldest will be picking up on Saturday. He's completing his 2nd year at Stony Brook. Hello? Mm-hmm. My third oldest is actually graduating this spring, class of 2022. So I want to give a big shout out to the class of 2022. And I know the last 4 years haven't been easy.
60.
My daughter spent a third of her high school career quarantined, so I want to give a big shout out to the class of 2022. And I have a young daughter who's in 3rd grade, New City Elementary. I want to make sure that my 3rd grader is provided with the same level of integrity and high education, high public school education that my oldest children were provided. As parents, we see the greatness in our children, and I like to think that who my children are
30.
is because of my efforts alone, but I know that not to be true. I know that my children are who they are today because of PTA members, because of teachers, because of faculty, because of administrators. And I want to ensure that my 3rd grader, my youngest, is given that same level of access to a public school education. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hi. Hello. My name is John Maltby, and I would also like to thank the PTA Council for hosting this event. I'm actually a proud, longstanding member of the PTA, having first joined when my daughter began at Lakewood Elementary in a kindergarten. I served there as chair of the PTA Scholarship Committee for several years. I continued that work at FESTA as a member of the Scholarship Committee as a reader in that role, and most recently served as a delegate from North for the PTA Council Scholarship. And although I have often found myself as the only man in the room, my PTA sisters accepted me wholeheartedly, despite my obvious shortcomings. On a more serious note, I am running for school board this year because I am a strong believer in the value and necessity of public education. In fact, I believe that public education is the cornerstone of our democracy and that there is no greater avenue to economic and intellectual advancement than that afforded by our public schools. But I feel that the public education is under attack and needs to be protected.
60.
In what is hopefully the wake of COVID, we need to repair the social fabric that binds our community together. We need to encourage our children to understand, celebrate, and support each other. We need to make sure that all of our children feel safe, welcome, and accepted. We need to support our teachers who have carried an overly heavy burden these past 2 years to make sure that they have the tools, training, and appreciation that they are due. And we need to communicate with each other, parents, students, teachers, administrators, and residents with respect and civility. That may seem like a lot, and it is. But I put myself forward as an attorney trained not only to zealously advocate for my clients, but also to have the temperament to bring parties together through negotiation and compromise. As a teacher and mentor, helping students and interns find their paths to success. And as a member of this community, having lived here for 22 years and having lived in Rockland County for my entire life. And most importantly, as a father who wants nothing less than the best educational environment for his daughter and for all of your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Good evening. I hope everyone had a great Mother's Day. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you to the PTA Council, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions. I'm glad to see there is such interest in our community. I'm Jason Bass, and I am excited to be running for the Board of Education. As a parent of a kindergartner who is anxiously awaiting first grade, and as a father to a toddler who turns 3 next week, I know that their education is very important. Education is a priority for my wife and I. We moved here almost 6 years ago from Brooklyn, and we chose Clarkstown because of the amazing community and its stellar school system. We are vested here, and I am proud to be running for the board. Being an effective board member requires collaboration, a teamwork mentality, creative thinking, and empathy. As a New York City police lieutenant, I have learned and I am still learning these traits. And these are traits I hope that we can pass on to our students. I pass them on to my kids.
60.
These traits will help our schools grow and our children be successful. I plan to ensure our children are given a safe, friendly environment where they can learn their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I want all parents to work with our great teachers with transparency to make sure our schools and the education system is always improving. I know to continue to improve our schools, we need to stay focused on the fundamentals of education.
30.
These basics are where kids can be kids, where they can be given playtime, music, and gym, and taught that they are special. I want our schools to be a place where our kids know right from wrong and everyone is equal. No one is better than anyone else. I want our kids to become great thinkers, and I want our kids to know friendship. I want them to know what is right and what is wrong. That is why I'm running for board. I hope I can count on your vote next week. Thank you. And congrats to class of 2022.
Thank you. We will begin with question number 1, beginning with Alana. What do you see the role of a board member, and what immediate changes would you like to see happen should you gain a seat on the board?
So, as a board member, you work collaboratively with the other board members and the school district in creating policies and various discussions. If I am elected, I think immediately, I think improving the communication would be number 1 for me. As a parent who asks a lot of questions herself, I feel as though things could be clearer, more transparent. I do want to make sure that any bullying, of any kind in our schools is not tolerated. And from there, I'm looking forward to working collaboratively with the other board members. Again, for me, it's the transparency, it's the communication, which I, in my own experience, have felt as though I haven't been heard. I've written numerous emails about the concerns I might have had in the past and continue to write emails, and they've gone unanswered. And maybe it's because it's the 100th millionth time they've received the email. But I think that, opening up for a question and answer opportunity for all to hear would be a really great thing to start. I know that they are communicative in writing emails back to you if you speak at the board meeting, but sometimes, the parent that spoke before you asked a question that you're interested in hearing the answer to. So just that clear transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, your next same question. What do you see the role of a board member, and what immediate changes would you like to see happen should you gain a seat on the board?
Unfortunately, school boards have become ground zero for political debate. And I'm not sure that that's the role of the school board. And contrary to popular rhetoric, school board members do not have omnipotent power where we can just come in and set an agenda. The role of the school board member is to work collaboratively with other school board members. The role of the school board member is to work in conjunction with the superintendent. The role of the school board or a school board member is to be a leader and to set the direction of the school board district, or the school district rather. And we don't do that by debating politics. We do that by implementing best practices and developing policy. The role of the school board is to create policy. The role of the school board is to enforce policy when it's needed to be enforced. The role of the school board member is to review policy that might not necessarily be working. And we do that always with student interest in mind, right? So when we're developing policy, when we're enforcing policy, when we're reviewing policy, we do that with the interest of student education. We do that with the interest of student mental health. We do that with the interest of student safety. And so if given the opportunity to serve on this board, I understand that it's not, something that I come into with an agenda. It's something that I work collectively and collaboratively with other school board members and with the superintendent and with invested stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. John, what do you see the role of a board member, and what immediate changes would you like to see happen should you gain a seat on the board?
Sure, thank you. Well, I think, again, to echo the sentiments that have been expressed, school board members are not omnipotent. We choose and work collaboratively to set out a vision for the school district, and then we work towards delivering that vision in the best way possible and in the interests of the school district, particularly in the interest of students. I think this year we're going to have a very unique opportunity because we'll have a new superintendent taking his seat or her seat here in the district, and I think that we can, as members of the community who have sort of experienced and been down this road before, we can help educate that superintendent on sort of the way that the district sort of has operated and the way that possibly it can move forward in a more progressive and productive way. I agree with Alana completely that communication is an issue that we all need to do better with, from the way we speak to our neighbors over the fence to the way that we speak to each other at Board of Ed meetings. I think that the rhetoric and the vitriol has gotten extremely caustic. We need to tone that down. We need to talk to each other as parents, as community members again. And I'd like to see more pathways for communication being opened up if I am to sit on the board. And I'd also like to see the district sort of to move forward. We've been stuck now in this neutral position in place for over a year and a half. I'd like to see the district make a commitment to inclusion, to making sure that all of our students here are welcomed, accepted, and safe in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, what do you see the role of a board member, and what immediate changes would you like to see happen should you gain a seat on the board?
Thank you. Part one of that, the role of the board member is to make sure students are number one. We have to make sure our kids learn kindness, empathy, and are proud of themselves, that they're able to succeed. Everybody on the board has to put the kids first, and that is our number one goal. We have to do everything to make sure our kids are set up for success and not failure. We have to ensure transparency. Trust is vital. We have to make everything open and let everybody see what's going on and what is in the classrooms. We represent the taxpayer, the teachers, the admin, the community, the students. We're advocates for everybody, so it's a balancing act. And we need to have complete collaboration and clear communication. Our job is to help guide the direction we as the community want to ensure that we go in. We have to make sure politics stay out of the classroom. The second part of your question, the immediate change, is to help our kids who suffered so much under COVID. We have to get them reacclimated back into society. It's been very slow, and these kids suffered enough. The harm done, we're not going to see for generations. We got to make sure that we are advocating for our kids. We have to be out there making sure that everything that we do is for them.
30.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill,
Yes.
would you like me to repeat the
You're not
question?
gonna read the question?
I can repeat.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
All right. Well, obviously, everybody said, oh, here we go. Can you hear me back there? No? Good. Obviously, everybody said policies, that's automatic. I'd like to throw in cheerleader. I used to, when I was on the board, I used to enjoy to go to all the kids' games and the plays and everything like that. Be out there in the community, let them know that you care about the children. But the one thing that is important as a board member, and you must support the superintendent. The superintendent is the leader of our district. And that person, new one coming in, is going to have a learning curve the first 3 or 4 months. So it's going to be very important and vital that we, right off the bat, we make that person feel comfortable, and that we go there and let them know 7-0, not 4-3. 4-3's got to go in the garbage. 4-3 has been here for 10 years. 7-0 board telling the new superintendent, we're here, we're willing to work with you, whatever you need, we're here. And I think that's vitally important. And I can tell you the truth, I don't think the parents trust the board members anymore or the district. I just used to watch these meetings on TV and all the screaming and yelling that's gone on here. I'm used to it because I was on the board 10 years ago when the same stuff happened. It hasn't stopped. So we have to build up the trust again with the parents. As far as kindness and all that other stuff, that's the parents. The parents have to build the foundation at home and work with the schools to make sure we have a well-rounded student. That's why we're here. We're in the education business. We want to make sure that we build these kids up, that one day they could be plumbers, they could be doctors, they could be lawyers, astronauts, whatever they want to be. It's right here in front of them. So we just have to support them in every way we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2 will begin with Brian. What expectations do you have for the new superintendent?
The new superintendent, from my understanding, will most likely be from outside of our community. And so one of the expectations that I would have for the new superintendent would be that he or she be open to listening to what the concerns are not just from board members, but from students and teachers as well. Superintendent would have to know that there's a contract that's expiring in 2023. Superintendent has to be aware of what the issues are with regards to what the teachers' expectations are. Superintendent has to be aware of what the social, emotional issues are that plague our district. I'm not sure if bullying is a question that's to be asked later on, but bullying is a concern of mine. And I think that we have to look at a superintendent who is willing to examine best practices that seek to mitigate levels of bullying throughout our school district. And that includes implementing a curriculum that's focused on social emotional learning, a curriculum that's focused on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as a curriculum that's culturally responsive. These are things that I expect from the new superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Sure, thanks. Well, I'm expecting that whoever we end up with here as the superintendent will be aware of sort of what's been happening across the country. Things are not exactly warm and fuzzy, I guess, across school boards and school board meetings across the country, including here. We've had our own situations where it's been very hostile to the point of having school board members having to walk off the dais. So I think they need to be armed with that knowledge. I think they need to be armed with a thick skin, and I think they have to be ready to both lead, provide their own vision for this district, and to communicate that vision. We need somebody who's strong enough to develop a position that supports all of our students in this district and is willing to take the hits, because there will be hits, to move the district forward, and to do so in a way that is clear and concise and lacks ambiguity. We need someone who can speak to our parents, to our students, to our teachers, and our administrators directly and clearly, and who can express himself without interpretation, without sort of double talk, without some of the things that have sort of plagued past superintendents, without people sort of second guessing what the meaning is behind emails or messages or decisions. So my expectations is that we get a strong leader who is able to communicate effectively and who is willing to withstand some of the slings and arrows that he's undoubtedly going to face here in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Thank you. My expectations for the superintendent are to embrace everybody. They're able to step up and lead. We have about 700 teachers in this district, and we need to hear their voice. They're the ones who are educating our children. They are the ones who we need to be listening to. I hope that superintendent understands what's going on in the community, hears from the boards, but sits down with the teachers. They need to know what the teachers need and how we can help them. The job of the superintendent is to put us in the direction that the community wants in conjunction with the board. They have to be very clear in their message, clear in their vision, and clear in their goal. They have to talk with these teachers, but they can't do it in a didactic tone. They have to be humble. They have to be open to all suggestions, and they have to be supportive. That's what a leader does. They step up and they motivate their team. They have to think outside the box. They have to be resilient, and perhaps they could even go and just start a re-engineering thing, maybe on like GoMonkey or SurveyMonkey, and see what these teachers need if they want to do it anonymously. But they need to work with these teachers. It's the only way to really form teamwork and have unity. They have to listen to them. They have to listen to the community as well. But the teachers are on the front line. They need to know what they hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, after hearing all that, I don't even know if that human being exists. all these expectations that people have for this person. We don't even know who it is. We have no idea. We didn't interview them. We have no clue. My first day, if I win, I'm going to shake the hand and say, good luck. It's your district. You're the superintendent. And he has to go around, or she has to go around this whole district and find out on their own what we have here. They're not, people in the district are going to not be able, they'll tell him stuff or her stuff, but you can't take that as gospel. So that person has to go learn it on their own. It's going to be a learning curve. They're new. But for a board member to say, I expect you to be this, I expect you to be that, I think that's just over. That's not the role of a board member. Let's let the person do what they have, let's see what they have, and let's work with when they make a decision. We can't say what they're going to be until they make a decision. We don't even know who the person is.
60.
So the question, is asked who the superintendent. I would love to know who the person is tonight. I would love to have looked them up and said, or her up, what district they came from, what do they believe in. But we don't know. We can only anticipate when they start. The person's going to have to get familiarized with their staff, the administration, and then they're going to go out into the schools and find out. And then it's going to be a learning curve. So let's not expect miracles in the first 3 to 5 months. We have to take this slow and make sure that we do it right this time. 4 superintendents in 10 years. We have to make this one right. Thank you.
Thank you. Alana?
So for the new superintendent, I would be hopeful that the person is a good communicator. They are clear with their communication. They're good at conflict resolution, and they're not going to shy away from a difficult topic. I'd like to see somebody who works collaboratively with the board and the parents and the teachers, all the staff, someone who supports students and wants to move forward in the academics. I'd like somebody who who really does think outside the box and is willing to try different options of when things are difficult. I think that last year, that was one thing that we all sort of agreed with, was there were options that could be tried, and if they failed, it was okay. We should just, but we can keep trying. I just hope that the person is not just a no person, and that they can take, the ideas of many and be very willing to hear the large amount of people that are willing to speak up and be heard. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 3, we'll begin with John. Many parents feel that the district's anti-bullying programs aren't working. What steps do you feel could be implemented to reduce bullying and claims of bullying within the district?
Thank you. I would say that that parents may not be wrong. I think that in the wake of COVID, I think that a lot of damage has been done to the sense of community, to the social fabric that ties our students together. Being alone and studying in your room for a year, you lose touch with how to interact with folks. So we need to sort of reestablish those bonds. We need to make sure that we are committing to social and emotional learning, that we are encouraging our children to not only understand how they feel and how that may manifest in their actions, but also to celebrate and understand their classmates. There needs to be acceptance across the board, and I think the school can certainly encourage that with the social emotional learning. I think that we can provide greater training to our teachers so that they are enabled to identify potential behavioral issues before they arise, so that we can have positive behavioral interventions at the earliest possible amount in time. We can identify at-risk students who may be subject to bullying, and also the kids who might, bully as well. So prevention, I think, is an important part of this. Reinforcing the social emotional learning, I think, is a second component of that. Understanding and teaching kids how to understand their emotions and how to react with them. And the third part is and I believe the district is already moving in this direction, is to move towards restorative justice, to make all of our issues that arise with respect to bullying not merely punitive events for the bullier, but for the bully, but teaching moments where we can both make sure that the person who was targeted is okay and their needs have been met, and also that the bully, through counseling or other measures,
Time.
learns as well.
Thank you. Jason?
As far as bullying goes, bullying is terrible. Nobody should be bullied on any level, and it seems like there's bullying going on all over the place, and we have to address that. We do have mental health professionals in our school. We need to utilize them. We need to make sure that they're coordinating with the teachers. The teachers, again, are on the front line. They see what's going on. They can see patterns with the students. Kids who start having failing grades, kids who are coming in, they're sleeping in class. Whatever the issue is, they're going to be the ones who identify it. We have to coordinate with them. We have to make sure that we teach empathy to these kids. It's the only way. We have to make it known that bullying is not going to be tolerated, whether it's some sort of social media challenge or a threat that goes out. It's not going to be tolerated in any way. We have to coordinate with our SROs in our school. Clarkstown Police has phenomenal SROs, and we need to utilize them, keep them aware of what's going on, make sure that they're aware. Maybe, I don't know if we're doing safety briefings on a daily basis or only when something arises, but we need to keep them in the loop. And we have to identify these at-risk children. We have to get them the help that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, I agree with the other candidates. It is an issue in our school district. You hear it all the time. I get calls from parents that are friends of mine. What's going on in the junior high now is atrocious, and I'm not going to go further on that, but I've gotten phone calls on what's going on in the junior high. You know, there was a girl getting beat up at Clarkstown North, a fight, and right off the bat, it goes on the YouTube. It's all over the place. Something's not right in the school district, and we have plenty of police officers. They do a great job. We have the SROs, the teachers, but the most important element of this is the parents. Now, in this day and age, most parents work 2 jobs, or they're not home. And most important thing when I was young is that everybody had to be at the dinner table. And at the dinner table, you learn a lot of things of what's going on in school. And you can see how your kids react to questions you ask them of what's the story, or if they look down, if they look depressed, you can tell. But the parents have to be the front line of teaching the kids that bullying is bad. When we come to school, the teachers, the TAs, and everybody else is here to reinforce that. So we have to get together with the parents and the school and the administration to come up with a plan, because this bullying plan we have now is not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Alana?
Thank you. Bullying is a big issue in our schools. I think every school has reported there's been some type of bullying. I think that the teachers and the staff try incredibly hard to manage it. I know that from my own experience with my own children who are young. I have a first grader who has reported, very unkind things being said or done to her. And when I talk to the school about it, they are very, very responsive. It doesn't, in the moment it might help, but in, a day later or 2 days later, it's back. And, because of what my child is dealing with from the social emotional issues of the pandemic, she has a lot of trouble controlling herself in her responses. And it's hard as a parent. It's not that it's, in our home, it's not that it's not talked about.
60.
Just that it's really hard to get under control. I know that it's talked about a lot about how to be a kind friend and how we need to respect others and treat them, but I think we need to hold people accountable to what we're teaching them. I think the same thing goes for, but what happens when somebody's unkind? What's a proper response? Do we seek help from others? Who are the people that we can call upon, and we shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed of it. You know, I think that the more we communicate, the more we talk about it as a group, the more that we say that it's happening and we're just made aware, the more that we can stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
It's a lot harder when you go last, 'cause everyone said everything already. This is a conversation that John and I have had together. There's not one marker. There's not one. There's not one thing that makes a child vulnerable to bullying. Any child is vulnerable to bullying. But there is scholarship, evidence-based research that suggests that there are communities that are more vulnerable to bullying. These are communities that are historically marginalized, LGBTQ plus communities, racialized communities, students with cognitive disability, students with regards to immigration status, socioeconomic class. These are all factors that contribute to bullying. I'm not sure that doubling down on zero tolerance is the answer to bullying. When there's evidence that social emotional learning and cultural responsive curriculum have contributed, evidence-based research that have contributed to the development of empathy within our school district, development of empathy towards others, that SEL and CRS have contributed to reducing tension, anxiety, and stress in students. And so I think you know, that's something that we need to focus on, is implementing DEI, CRS, and SEL within the curriculum.
Thank you. Question number 4 begins with Jason. Do you see value in devoting district resources, time, and money for equity training? Please explain.
Thank you. It has to be clear on equity. It seems like there's a lot of controversy going on right now behind CRT, DEI, social emotional learning. Everybody has to be given an opportunity to succeed. Should there be training for it? It depends what the training entails. There seems to be a correlation between DEI and CRT, and these are very hot topics right now. They shouldn't be. We should be worrying about teaching our kids how to be good people. We should be teaching them about ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. In terms of training, the state mandated it. They gave no criteria on how it's to be implemented for school districts across the state. So it falls to the school board and the superintendent and the curriculum to come up with that. In terms of training,
60.
I don't know how one trains somebody to embrace diversity. You have to train people to be a good human being. That's what you do. You teach them that everybody is given an opportunity to succeed. You go out there and you teach them to love thy neighbor. You go out there and you teach them not to be mean. That's what you do. You could put all the training you want into it. It may not help unless you're on the fundamentals of just being a good individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
I'm next?
Yes.
Oh, the other guy?
Jason went, and now you're next.
That was you, Jason?
That
I'm
was
sorry.
Jason.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was the other guy. All right. Well, if you're talking about DEI, and I agree with Jason, it is mandated. So if nobody understood that, it's mandated. So it's going to be in our district. And the BOE portion of this is that we're in charge of policies. So we're going to have to get together at one point and formulate policies on how we're going to go ahead with the DEI. This third thing is, what policies become have to be fair and balanced to both sides. We can't take the left side and we can't go all the way over to the right side. We have to go in the middle. Everybody has to have a stake has to have the seat at the table and to see what they want to put in this DEI. It's not just my opinion or 6 other board members. We need the parents, the teachers, and the administration to get involved with this, come up with a plan, then come back to the board, and then the board will decide what policies we'll implement. And we just have to unify. I said this in the beginning. We got to unify. No matter what we put forward, we have to do it, have a unification process in our district, and we have to do it fair and balanced, that all the parents could have, they have to give a little bit on each side of what we're going to implement in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Alana?
So I do believe that diversity and inclusion are very important. I think it's important to celebrate the things that make us different. DEI is a framework, which is a guideline that was created by New York State, and I believe that there should be a curriculum to follow that is discussed, and there are committees made where this can be discussed in order to be created. If there's not a curriculum to purchase, then there needs to be a roadmap so that we are making sure that everybody's voices are heard, and we're not pitting people against each other. In terms of training, truthfully, my truthful answer would be that I'd like to know what the professional development would be, because I am a big proponent of always making sure that people get the knowledge that they seek. I think that's really important. But again, I don't want to pit people against each other. Nobody should be, put over the other, or their feelings matter over the other. I think that everything needs a guideline. I think it needs a curriculum, and it needs a roadmap on how to teach it, so that we're not just pulling things from anywhere. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Would you mind repeating the question again?
Sure. Do you see value in devoting district resources, time, and money for equity training? Please explain.
Yes. My emphatic yes is not just to the idea of diversity based on race and or gender. I'm also looking at diversity with regards to mental development. I'm looking at diversity with regards to equity, in that respect, being able to handle harassment that's taking place inside our schools, being able to handle bullying, being able to identify teachable moments. And so when we are looking to invest in the professional development of our teachers, I don't imagine it as just something that's focused on people who are racialized or gendered. I'm looking at it in terms of equity on a large scale. My daughter is 504, and she struggled through 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I wonder, had it been caught earlier, would she have done better emotionally? And so do our teachers, as a parent, I'm asking the question, do our teachers have the training to identify patterns of behavior early on? And so with regards to that question of diversity, I'm thinking, the diversity of all of our children in terms of intellectual development, race, gender, sexuality, are our teachers fully prepared to address the scope of that?
Thank you. John?
I would also add an emphatic yes, absolutely. And for the record, and despite what you may have heard, there is no correlation between DEI and CRT. These are completely different concepts. DEI has been around for a while. In fact, the New York State Board of Regents and the Board of Education recommended that all school districts within New York develop DEI policies in 2018. And for whatever reason, it wasn't until 2021 that this district had its first workshop on DEI. Meanwhile, it was reported in October of 2021 that over half the districts in Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland have either taken serious steps or are far along in developing DEI policies. And we are, Clarkstown, the top of the heap in Rockland County, at least sitting at the starting gate. And I understand that a lot of this was due to sort of contentious Facebook rhetoric that really stalled out any movement forward, but we need to sort of get out of the starting blocks. We have a student body that is 45% non-white, yet our teachers are 95% white. And we need to provide training to those teachers in order to be able to communicate in an equitable and fair manner with the students that they're dealing with every day.
30.
And like Brian said, it's not just racial issues or gender issues or sexuality issues. It applies to the neurodivergent and religious issues as well. Our kids need to feel safe, they need to feel welcome, and they need to be accepted in this district.
Thank you. Question number five begins with Phil. There has been indication that a bond proposal may be brought to the public within the next few years. What do you think needs to be included in that bond? What are your spending budget priorities?
A bond for the whole district you're talking about that's been floated? The one I heard, what I heard was Clarkstown North, and that's probably the school that needs the most work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. 10 years ago, I was on the board. It was talked about then. I thought things were getting done when I was watching the board docs and all this other stuff in the meetings, and I saw there was roofs being done. Some people called me up and said they're waiting for their playgrounds. There's things that are on the horizon that's supposed to be coming. But Clarkstown North would probably be the #1 place to do to fix it up. It's really in bad shape, and it's I don't know how much it's going to cost because I don't know what bond they're looking for, but we're in tough financial times in the country now, and everything has gone up with construction costs. And once you start opening up buildings, we have asbestos to worry about. But I think if it was just a north bond to do the north school to start off, I think that would be my first priority, to do the Clarkstown North School first. So I would be in favor of a bond, but I would vote for if it had to be the Clarkstown North School first.
Thank you. Alana?
I would definitely be in favor of it. I can't sit up here and say that our buildings need repairs. Like Phil said, North, I've heard as well. I went to North, and at that time it needed repairs. Our buildings are older, but I do have to say that the ventilation systems need an upgrading, I was hoping to include air conditioning and improvements to the heating. I think we learned last year that, in this day and age, it would be a great opportunity to put air conditionings within our buildings. As we see, it gets very hot for the children, for the staff. In Mass, they had to stay home because of it. So that's what I would like to see. Again, I know that North has a lot of discussion about the improvements that need to be made. And I know that some of the elementary schools were built many years ago and need improvements there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes. It's my understanding that we're still a couple of years away from a new bond. I know that we're still, I think we're catching up still with the previous bond. I know that this summer we're going to get all the schools are going to get new playgrounds. In the event that we were to pass a new bond, I think I agree with Alana and Phil wholeheartedly. With three kids who have with two boys who have graduated North and a daughter who's about to graduate North, I know very well that North needs a lot of improvements. But I'm also looking at our budget for next year. And, you know, I think Clarkstown has done a great job
60.
in terms of, you know, being able to adapt to inflation while also keeping the tax levy within that 2% gap. And I think the district has done a great job in terms of rollovering the budget. But I know that there are things that are going to happen in the spring. And so I'm wondering, how do we as a community think creatively to address those changes that might happen? And how will that impact the next bond? Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thanks. Yeah, I think having attended the recent budget meetings, it looks like at least next year we're looking to retire some debt service. Maybe we see the level of debt the district is paying to go down a bit, and probably the year after that we'd be looking at a bond. We'll also be looking at some contract negotiations with the unions at that point as well. So it's going to be interesting. There are going to be some decisions that need to be made, certainly, coming up ahead. One of the things that I've certainly heard while walking around throughout the district talking to folks about this election is that you know, people like to talk bad about North. My daughter's a ninth grader there. I had no hesitation sending her there, but I remember sitting, I believe, in this room a couple of years ago when I think it was 2018, when the latest uproar over some of the pest infestations were raised, and there were
60?
decisions made about choosing what school to go to. I would certainly like to know where we stand with the pest issue at North, and I'd like an update certainly on that even if I'm not on the board. But I think we also need to be careful about a North-specific bond because it sort of harkens back to what happened with Congers Elementary. And I think it was the feeling I got, and I was a Lakewood parent, so I didn't really have a direct vested interest in Congers, was that the board sort of tried to call Congers bluff by putting up a Congers-only bond. At the end of the day, Congers organized and Congers voted for it, and they passed that bond despite the fact that it only favored one school. So I have some concerns about doing a Clarkstown North-only bond just because it may set our schools off against each other, but I also appreciate that North clearly needs attention and upkeep. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
I may have misunderstood the question. Can you repeat it? I didn't think it was a specific school bond. If you could repeat it, thank you.
Sure. There has been indication that a bond proposal may be brought to the public within the next few years. What do you think needs to be included in that bond? What are your spending budget priorities?
Okay, thank you. If a bond is going to include, I think it's got to take into account what needs to be fixed. Building maintenance is a major priority, and fleet operations. Those are major priorities. Those are the biggest expense for any entity of this size and for outside entities. We have to make sure everything is operational. So if we're going to pass a bond, it has to be very specific. Is it going to be for sewage line fixing throughout the entire school district? Is it going to replace all the boilers? Is it going to, well, we're getting new playgrounds, and I know Laurel Plains just got a new playground. But it has to be very specific. So we have to identify what the biggest issue is before we just go out there and do it. In terms of other options, if we're going to put it towards safety or anything like that, maybe we could sit down with our SROs contractually. I don't know what the police are able to do in terms of working with the school and the admin, but maybe they can get a grant for new doors, security
60?
doors of some sort. We'd have to see what our reserves are before we go out there and put a big onus on taxpayers. We should be looking at upgrading our Wi-Fi systems in our school. That's a major issue. We're advancing on technology substantially. So our Wi-Fi, that's going to be the next big expense that we're going to incur. So we should be looking at that. Again, with grants, before we put it all on the taxpayer, we have to see what's out there.
30.
That's all. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just correct one thing that I said? No?
No, sorry, we're not allowed to. Okay. Question number 6 will begin with Alana. What mental health classes or programming do you think would help our students, especially those in middle and high school?
I think utilizing, some of the resources we have. I know we talked earlier, some of the candidates talked about social emotional learning. I think that research should be done about what seems to be working, but really having the support staff available. Again, normalizing that people feel anxious, people feel sad, people feel, they feel good, they feel bad, and normalizing it to talk about it. I know with myself during the pandemic, I had my own struggles with this, and I know what I felt like when I went to middle and high school. And I feel very strongly that that being supported and knowing that it's okay to seek the staff that's there to talk to is incredibly helpful. I think it's really important, especially I know middle school is incredibly difficult, and for some it doesn't get any easier as you go into high school. You might not know who you are or what you want out of life, and it's scary. I think in order to feel supported, you just should speak with somebody and have the people that are in that building give the students and the classes the opportunity to maybe even come in weekly, twice a week, to remind people that they're there and they can make an appointment or they can just stop by, or just making sure that our students know that we care. Everybody cares.
30.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Would you mind repeating again?
No problem. What mental health classes or programming do you think would help our students, especially those in middle and high school?
So one of my concerns has been the federal funding that was provided by the CARES Act. I know a lot of that money was given towards the hiring of additional counselors, mental health support, psychologists. And so what happens when that aid is gone, and are we at risk of losing those individuals who I think played a major role in maintaining the mental health of our children? Right? If we no longer have CARES funding, does that mean we no longer care? Our children have gone through a lot the past couple of years. Again, I remind my daughter, she spent a third of her high school career quarantined in her room. And that's had a major impact on her development psychologically, intellectually, in all respects. And so it's important moving forward that, again, tying this to the budget next year, we can't lose that additional support that's been provided to our students, to our children. We have to ensure that there's revenue available so that we maintain that additional support. We need to encourage and normalize anxiety and stress. Remind our students, our children, that what they went through is unprecedented, and that it's okay to feel the way they feel, and we have to have those professionals available to our children and to our students.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. I guess I learned, sadly, that one of the apparent casualties of perhaps COVID was the demise of the PTA's education panel. Because looking back over some of the past years' minutes of meetings and things like that, they were looking at some really potentially very helpful things for our students, things like start times for our kids, which is a policy that the New York State School Board Association is behind looking at that and seeing whether we can adjust start times, because that, again, sort of has a direct evidence-based effect on the mental health and well-being of our students, particularly at the high school level. They were looking at homework policy, which I think is another thing that sort of needs to be looked at. I know that other districts within the county have addressed homework policy, either reducing or trying to achieve a better balance for our students with respect to the amount of homework that they're doing. I would love to see some form of ed panel come back. Perhaps we can talk about that after the meeting, because I think these are certainly valuable things that would help all of our students. The other areas I think that we need to focus on, particularly at the middle school and high school level, are our transition years, the transition from 5th to 6th, the transition where things sort of get geared up seemingly in 7th. And I think a lot of people a lot of students either get lost or fear they're getting lost because they're missing that academic train to where they think they should be. And then again, the transition from middle school to high school, and sort of focusing on those transition times for our students to make sure, again, that they're comfortable in making the switch from maybe an elementary level to a middle school level where they're going to be expected to do more, will go a long way towards helping their mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Thank you. In terms of the mental health, it's vital. These kids suffered unknown damage, and we have to make sure that their mental health is good going forward. Maybe we should take a play at it like the IEP playbook and see what these programs offer. Choose a program with clear, obtainable objectives and goals, reevaluate it and make a change, see what the best practices are. We heard about best practices before. Let's see what works in terms of mental health and getting these kids reacclimated into the classroom setting. Maybe, do a buddy system where somebody at the high school goes to the middle school and they become their buddy, and now they start teaching them, or at least, befriending them a little bit of what they're going to experience going forward, so some of that anxiety's not there. Have small groups, maybe in a classroom where you come into some sort of setting in the classroom, you can sit there and talk. Hey, what's going on? What do you think about next year? And bring somebody in. Maybe send a teacher from the high school to the middle school. I don't know what the contractual obligation is. I'm throwing out suggestions, but I think that's what you have to do as a board member. Just throw out suggestions, see what is what works and what doesn't. Maybe there's after-school programs. Again, everything is contractual, but I'm sure you probably find a hell of a lot of these dedicated teachers who are willing to work with these students out there.
30.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil?
All right, now I'm going to correct the statement that I made before. The statement was that Clarkstown North, I said that it should be a North-only bond. I misspoke. I meant that the Clarkstown North work should be done first. So I just want to correct the record for that, and I thank John for pointing that out. It's a big problem. It's a big problem in our district because nobody has the answer, and nobody knows what effect COVID had on our children. Nobody has that answer tonight. We could all say what we want to do, but it's going to take a while to observe what our kids, once they're back to normal now, so-called normal, back to school. But it's going to take a while to see what effects. How do we know what happened to a kindergartner, a first grader? Are they up to par now that they're in third grade? Are they up to third grade level? We don't know. Is a sixth grader now who's now going into high school? Are they at high school? I talked to a teacher that works in the junior high. He says, we get people that come to us, their reading is not up to par at the junior high level. So we have to look very carefully, and this is the new superintendent should come in and look at this and say what program is he's going to bring in, what he's going to bring to the board after talking to all the stakeholders to see what we could come up with to try to help the kids get over this COVID. It's part of life, but these kids suffered for 2 years being shuffled around, mask, this, that, and everything, and it had to have effects on them. I hope it didn't, but I believe it did, and I think that we're going to have to work very hard as a district to get them the help they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 7 begins with Brian. Do you believe that diversity, including learning historical and modern facts about different races, religions, sexual orientation, etc., should be taught in our schools, assuming it's in a developmentally appropriate way?
Yes. We are here to provide our students with the best possible public education, or the best public education possible. And we can't do that. Thank you. We can't do that without providing information that is based on social historical facts. I am a person of color who is running for school board. And the question has been asked to me several times, in fact, if I win or if elected, will I become the first person of color on this school board? That has historical significance. Students have to be aware of the fact that not all people have been treated equitably in our country. And I think you do that at an early age. There is material that should be age appropriate, but in order to create a community that's empathetic towards one another, we have to use history as a teachable moment. And we have to provide context to why it is that certain people are more vulnerable to marginalization than other communities. So yes, teaching history has to be a part of our curriculum.
Thank you. John?
I would also agree emphatically with that. This country is great, not necessarily as in its formation. It's been great in its ideals and its development. When this country was formed, it was great for white landowning men because they could vote and they had the power, and lousy for everyone else, some of whom were considered property. The fact that we have advanced as a nation to a point where we no longer do that, and women have had the right to vote for only 100 years, is part of what makes this country what it is and what makes it great. The ability to sort of overcome, the ability to sort of do the right thing, sometimes taking longer than it should, are valuable lessons for our students.
60.
To pretend that our history is pristine, to ignore things that might make us feel uncomfortable or might be controversial, does a disservice to our students. And it creates a false sense of who we are and where we've come from. And on the educational side, it would threaten the district's ability to continue teaching things like AP courses and IB courses, which require these types of subjects, these types of controversial subjects and facts to be taught. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you believe that diversity, including learning historical and modern facts about different races, religions, sexual orientation, etc., should be taught in our schools, assuming it's in a developmentally appropriate way?
Thank you. This is a very hot topic. One, we have to define exactly what a developmentally appropriate way is. We have to put an age to it. We have to make sure our kids are critical thinkers, because it seems like everybody wants to teach this. We grew up learning in a particular way where it wasn't dropped on us in such a way. And I think the majority of people have grown up to be good human beings. And it seems like this is being pushed on everybody. I don't think race is as big of an issue as people want it to be. I think most people are good people. I don't think there's racism running around. I don't think the LGBTQIA plus organizations are not having a voice. I think they are. I think we should listen to everybody. I think race should be taught, but it should be taught in a way that people can
60.
understand it. I think sexual orientation should be taught in a way that kids can understand it. So we need to identify what developmentally appropriate is. The well-intentioned sentiments are there. We have to make sure that what we implement makes sense and to who we're teaching it to. Until our kids are critical thinkers and can understand and ask questions, it's very tough. I'm not saying we should shy away from it. I'm saying we should teach it in a clear way that everybody understands. If we're putting the history out there, it has to be factual history. We have to teach our kids what goes on and how they can better themselves and have them understand at how good of a country this is, that people are dying to get in here on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, it is a hot potato, and when you run for office, you can't shy away from your answer. I would not be comfortable teaching this in the elementary schools. In the junior high, I think we can very well start teaching it, and I'm all for teaching it in the high schools. I just think that the youngsters, a little too young, and I think the parents, as you can see over the last 3 months, are really going to fight this. So the youngsters need to learn, before the gentleman said ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. That's what I think the focus of the elementary school teachers are. And also, appropriate is, I don't want the math teacher teaching this in junior high or the high school, but it is appropriate to teach this stuff in high school and junior high for the social studies teacher. Or you could develop a class to teach stuff. I just believe, and I'm just a firm believer, that the first teachers that the children have are their parents. So that's where you get your foundation on what's going on in the world. Listen to your parents and let them teach you about that. Let the teachers in elementary school teach the kids, because that's their K through 3 is their most important developmental years in their lives. Let's worry about teaching them math, English, arithmetic, and move on to the other stuff as they get older, as they're mature enough to understand the seriousness of what you're trying to teach them. I'm not against it for the older kids, but I'm not comfortable with the elementary kids learning it at this time.
Thank you. Alana?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Do you believe that diversity, including learning historical and modern facts about different races, religions, sexual orientations, etc., should be taught in our schools, assuming it's in a developmentally appropriate way?
So, thank you. The first thing is, yes, historical facts should be taught to our students. And the developmental appropriateness of the discussion is also important. I think that, this topic is, very, a hot topic to talk about. And I think that it might not be something that we can just bring in, based on one person's, one person bringing it in. I think it does need a committee. I think it needs constant conversation and group discussion. I think that a lot of us in the community, including the people I'm sitting up here with, have a lot of valuable information and valuable input to contribute to a discussion. And that's, moving forward, what I would really like to see. The world is made up of all types of people. And again, I'm going to emphasize the developmental appropriateness of things. But I don't think being scared to teach something is why we don't. But I think that we need to be clear in what we're teaching to let the parents know. I think that I think it's going to help us to work collaboratively together, the board, the schools, the parents. I think that is going to be the most important part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 8 begins with John. Can you please provide specific examples of committee positions or jobs you have held in the past and how you worked together to move forward even when you and your colleagues may have had different perspectives on an issue?
Sure. Well, I mentioned earlier that I was chair of the Lakewood Scholarship Committee for years. I think basically I took over when my daughter was in first grade and carried on through fifth. I don't know if we had any serious debates over qualifications. It's always a humbling experience for me because you see these resumes from high school seniors that are just astounding, and you sort of wonder where things went wrong for me and how things could have been much better. But part of my everyday life as an attorney, I work in-house for a company, is making these decisions, trying to figure out the best course forward. Oftentimes, it's a result of careful thoughtfulness, making sure that you have all the facts. I'm regularly conducting investigations for my various matters before deciding whether to go on a particular course of action. Oftentimes, I'm asked for my counsel and advice with respect to certain things, and that's always a very deliberative process. I pride myself on bringing my staff into these conversations to get their input. For me, it's never a sort of a Captain Ahab situation. It's in my way or the highway. It's always a collaborative effort to talk, share experiences, and come up with really what is the best possible solution for whatever's in front of us, whether it's a company decision to do something, to launch a litigation, perhaps to conduct an investigation or to settle a matter. It's always, for me, a result of a collaborative process with the people that I work with and the company that I work for.
Thank you. Jason?
One more time, if you could repeat it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you please provide specific examples of committee positions or jobs you have held in the past and how you work together to move forward, even when you and your colleagues may have had different perspectives on an issue?
I've served on various little committees within different agencies that I have worked for. I've been on safety boards, Jewish student organization at Rutgers Newark. I was a quad captain of my high school ultimate frisbee team. I've worked as a field training officer, overseeing new recruits and working with other sergeants and lieutenants. So we didn't always agree on the best course. Policies was laid out. We had to find the best way to operate within that policy. I think the major thing with that is collaboration. You have to be able to listen to everybody, function as a team, hear everybody's side, embrace the diversity, that when everybody is welcome, you're not just ostracizing one group, whether you like that person or that sergeant or that lieutenant. You embrace everybody, listen to them.
60.
It's the only way to make it work. You just have to have unity, hear everybody, even if you don't agree with them all the time. If they come up with a good suggestion, you should take it under advisement. See, it's the only way to make it work. You have to remember, the kids come first. So if you're sitting on this board, and the question is, how are you going to operate on the board? You have to operate with civility. You have to hear everybody's ideas. You have to embrace them. You may not always agree with that person, but you should be able to listen to them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, I'm on various boards, and I was on the Clarkstown School Board also. I'll talk about the good times I had. The ARC Foundation, I was on that board to raise money for autistic children. I think there we just collaborated just to get things going, so we really didn't have any issues on that board. So that was a good board. I was a commissioner of Parks and Rec in the town of Clarkstown. That was to make sure all the kids had good equipment and programs, so it really wasn't there. The one thing that happened, one board that I was on was the Clarkstown School Board, and there were things there that I could admit that I wish that I'd done differently, and that I acted differently. And, but, you know, history is a good learning tool. And you learn from your mistakes, and you own up to them. And I wish that I listened to my other colleagues more than I did. It was a contentious time, but I just wish I wish, you know, Judge Judy always says, God gives you 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? I learned that lesson. So I'm gonna, and you know, if I win this seat, it's gonna be more listening than mouth this time, and I think that's what I've learned from being on board.
Thank you. Alana?
Can you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
No worries. Can you please provide specific examples of committee positions or jobs you have held in the past and how you work together to move forward, even when you and your colleagues may have had different perspectives on an issue?
So I'm on the PTA at Wood Glen, and I'm a Girl Scout leader, and I was a soccer coach for the first time this fall. My co-captain was my husband, so that was, you know, challenging. But, you know, he kind of went along with what I said. At my everyday work, you know, people have and are entitled to their own opinions about things. Everybody's stressed in this climate with, you know, being understaffed. And sometimes, you know, more work gets put on you. But I find that, you know, by treating people respectfully and being honest and being willing to hear other people out, you can kind of, you know, kind of get around the anger that people do have. A lot of times when people are upset about something, it might not be directed at you, and you just kind of have to forge ahead. I think teamwork and collaboration are incredibly important for the people that sit on this board. You know, wanting to make it work, wanting to get along. Nobody's going to agree with the other person 100% of the time, but it's important to be a person that's willing to hear everybody's view, because they're all of our children. This is all of our schools. This is our community. You know, we are many voices, but we're one community. And so having the ability to be a good listener and not necessarily bring your own, you know, view to it is something that I think is also important. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Sure. So I've served on several committees at the post-secondary level. As a professor at John Jay College, I've served on the Faculty Senate Committee. I've served on the Personnel and Budget Committee, where we review applications for openings and for tenure. I've sat on curriculum committees where we develop classwork and coursework. Grades Appeal Committee, I am the director of a university-wide study abroad program, which I developed myself from the ground up. That took a lot of collaboration and communication, especially since the study abroad is it's undertaken in another country. I've served on diversity committees. I've served on a safety committee at John Jay. And one thing that I've learned in all the committees that I've served on is communication, cooperation, collaboration. Nothing that I've ever done was for any individual gain. It was always for the greater good, whether that be the greater good of our students, whether that be the greater good of my department, whether that's the greater good of John Jay, or whether or not that's the greater good of CUNY as a university. Lastly, I'm a father of 4, and my children still love me. Having dinner is an ordeal. So my family and my children, my wife, they've all helped me understand the importance of compromise and having to just listen to what other people want as well. So,
Thank you. Now we will conclude our forum with closing statements from our candidates. We will begin with Jason.
Thank you. As we all know, the board plays a critical role in setting out the direction our schools go in. I'm committed to the progress that will improve the education of all of our children. We are fortunate to live in this great community where our education is at the foreground. I intend to keep our schools in the lead. I will question policy that is detrimental to our kids, and I will make sure our teachers know just how valuable they are. I am confident that the new superintendent will prove invaluable. Should they need help, I will be there to help them. I will steady the ship, just as I did at the riots. I will be a calming force. I will be a leader, and I will always put our kids first. I hope I can count on your vote next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Okay, I just want to thank again the forum for, PTA Forum for inviting me here tonight. And I had a very good discussion with my, I don't even call them mates, they're just friends. You guys are all, we all live in the same community where we should all be friends. We should,
Neighbors.
there shouldn't be any arguments over this seat. Bottom line is here, if you can look here tonight, I'm running alone. I have my name on my sign. I'm not running as a team. We have teams out there running. So when you vote, you got teams you can vote for, or you can vote for an individual who's coming in, who has his own ideas. I didn't make any deals with other board members that in the future we're gonna hook up or anything like that. I don't know, I don't even know the board members. Maybe I know one out of the whole thing. And I just wanna say that, you know, what you get with me is I'm just gonna think every day, if I'm elected, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, whether it's a board meeting, whether it's a discussion on anything we discuss in the schools, understand this, the only people that I'll have in mind are your children. I will support your children as the best possible way I can. I will be an advocate for them, and every decision I make is going to be because of them. So I want to thank you, and I'm asking for your vote. If not, I thank you anyway. We're all neighbors, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. Alana?
Again, I'd like to thank the PTA Council for this opportunity, as well as thanking the other candidates and neighbors who sit beside me tonight. I believe that I have a lot of knowledge and experience in education and with strategies used in schools today. I also want to say that I have spent the last 2 years advocating for those who needed it, and I will continue to do so whether I am a board member or not. I greatly value this opportunity. I've given it my all. I want to be a board member in order to represent the community. I think that my experience and my background give me a viewpoint that allows for understanding and compassion, and to make it better for all. I believe that I have demonstrated that I can communicate clearly in a respectful manner, and even when it's not given in return. I am fair, and I am able to see all viewpoints, and I truly want what's best for all. I want to thank everybody, the community for your support, the people that sit up here with me, the teachers, the staff, the students. Thank you, and please, everybody, no matter who you vote for, get out there and vote May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
So in closing, I too would like to thank the PTA for organizing the event and giving us all the opportunity to be heard. It's important that the public know who we are when they make their vote and know where we stand on issues that are important to all of us. The other day I was asked by a parent, what do you think is the issue that is the most challenging for Clarkstown as a school district? And I thought about it for some time, and my response eventually was living up to our reputation. I'm not a native of Clarkstown. I'm not even a native of Rockland. I was born in the city. My wife graduated from North Rockland, sorry. And when we made the decision to relocate and have a family, there was no other options. It was Clarkstown. And I'm proud of the education that my older children have received as students in Clarkstown. I would like to think that it was all me, but I understand that it wasn't, and that the school district played an incredible role in their development. And it's important to me that my third grader have that same opportunity. What concerns me is what's happening nationwide. 80 school districts
30.
have committed to banning over 1,500 books. And I worry about the type of education that my daughter might get at Clarkstown. And so that's why I made the decision to run for school board, to ensure that my youngest had that same opportunity, and to make sure that your children have that same opportunity as well. So I'd like to echo Alana, May 17th, come out and vote, please.
Thank you. John?
As a fellow North Rockland graduate, I will second your wife's vote. Yeah, it was primarily the reason why when we decided to buy, following my stint in law school, a house and settle in Clarkstown was primarily because of the schools. You know, growing up, Clarkstown was always held as the standard for where schools should be. But I am concerned that that perhaps we've been sitting on the reputation for too long. Perhaps we've been sort of stuck in gear. Phil alluded to some of the issues with the musical chairs and the superintendents that we've had. I think we need to obviously get behind this new superintendent, whoever she may be, and support her and push this district forward. I've met an amazing amount of people, and over the last year, I met Brian a year ago actually, and he continues to impress and astound me. But in sort of asking for your vote, I think that I bring the tools that we need for moving this district forward. I believe I bring the temperament. I sort of try to stay on the positive side of things. I never judge before all the facts are in, and any decision I take is always very deliberative and collaborative. And I bring thoughtfulness, and regardless of the issues that are presented to the board,
30.
You can believe, and I will guarantee that I will give those issues thought and care. Nothing is prejudged, and I believe that I have the ability to bring us together, hopefully, if I'm seated on the board, and to move this district forward. Thank you, and please come out and vote next week on May 17th.
Thank you. That concludes our forum for this evening. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a good night.